Thank you everyone for coming. I'm super excited for this. Currently, I'm at Respawn, lead level designer in Apex Legends. I've been there for about 2 years now. Before that, I made a living off of Halo. I did a lot of Halo stuff working at a little company called Certain Affinity out here in Austin, Texas. One of the favorite projects that I've ever worked on was sadly canceled at the very last minute, which happens a lot in the industry. I was a creative director for this really cool Halo project. Maybe I'll get into a little bit of the bits and bobs about that a little bit later. The first thing you need to ask yourself is who is the target audience? And based on that, the next question should be who's actually going to be play testing your prototype? Because if it's just you, that's going to be a lot the that's going to factor in a lot differently than if you're handing it over to a publisher or a project director or something like that. Whereas if it is just you, you can let a lot of bugs and issues slide because you know what to avoid. But if you're handing the controller to someone else, you might need to polish it quite a bit more than you're expecting. Um, and typically, it's going to be for showcasing a fully playable game loop or vertical slice, like we were talking about earlier. Um, and prototypes, they can take a very long time to build, but they really don't have to because they're more to showcase the concept more so than like a finished product. So to that end, you only really want to include what's absolutely necessary to sell your vision. So if you're making a multiplayer FPS with destruction and vehicles, you may not want to spend a lot of time, say, on the front end and menus, for example, unless maybe that's absolutely critical to the vision for your game. Or if you're building like a JRPG, you may want to spend less time on the town and overworld and more time on things like the battle system and combat. But it all depends on what you think is going to be the most important part of the game or feature that you're trying to sell. Some of the main advantages for Unreal, and we're going to see some really interesting stuff that Unreal has now been catered towards. Its primary function is still definitely video games. Um, but I think the main thing that they're really trying to sell people on is the extreme quality visuals, like bleeding edge visual quality out of the box, and that's why they started using it in like film production, and for a lot of other interesting things as well. And Then obviously it has this blueprint system, which is about as close to coding as you can get without actually typing the code. And I know, like, I've worked with a lot of engineers in Unreal Engine 4 and 5. And even sometimes they'll be like, well, blueprints are actually faster to me to integrate because they can put in whatever visual based script or whatever it is they want. And it has all the same functions that they know from coding, and they don't have to do a massive compile of the entire project that has their code integrated into it. So it can actually be faster. Okay, so Construct 3, it's a super underrated and undervalued game engine, in my opinion, that I wish was a bit more mainstream because it's just so cool and so easy to develop for. It's primarily an events driven visual scripting tool that's catered to game development, but you can definitely get your hands dirty if you want to learn some JavaScript or write some custom code. Super fast iteration. It's mostly just drag and drop, and then you can play immediately. It's web based specifically for HTML5, but you'd be surprised just how many devices have HTML5 support. So that should be a huge barrier if you want to actually build a full game here. And then lastly, if you want to do 2D and retro stuff, it's just absolutely awesome and really excels at those. And you can even do some basic 3D if you want to build maybe like an old school boomer shooter or something along those lines. And so you wanted to slowly introduce the player to the new features of the engine. And so you see, okay, like it's relatively flat. You got some stairs up in front, and then over on the left now you've got angled walls and a lone staircase and some pillars. And then if you go up to the top of the stairs here, you can actually see out and there's a horizon. So you can see there, that's the first time we ever had like skyboxes in a game. And you kind of keep progressing. And then there's details in the ceiling. You keep moving, then you've got these weird jagged walkways, and then there's slime hazard here. The most important part about the sea room, though, is there's an imp that's very intentionally placed up here on this ledge. Hopefully, you guys can see my cursor. But there's a ledge just to the right and down of C. That's where an imp is, and it's very intentionally placed there so that as soon as you enter the room, that imp is going to throw a fireball at the player, and it's going to introduce them. They're going to react by dodging it, so they're going to get introduced to projectiles in real time. But it's probably also going to go over their head because their forward momentum is going to carry them into the space, and then they're going to start shooting, even though they can't. At least in the original Doom, you couldn't adjust your aim to look upward. The player's going to instinctively start shooting in that direction and recognize, oh, if I fire my gun in this direction, I can hit enemies, whether they're above or below me. And it's a really brilliant level. Later levels in the game, I think, get kind of terrible, but this one's really good and worth analyzing. There's a lot more to it that we could get into, but I really like the way that this one was designed and how slowly it introduces a lot of the really important features. I'm going to create an empty object here, and I'm just going to call this, let's see, ceiling light. There's probably already something that's called that. And I'm going to make sure it's at the top over here. What I'm going to do is grab this. I'm going to right click. I grabbed the mesh or the prefab for the hanging light. I'm going to right click on position and say copy down here at the bottom. I'm going to click back on the ceiling light, right click on the position and say paste. And now it's going to put it exactly in that place. Now what I'm going to do is drag both of these under ceiling light. You notice it didn't change anything. I've got ceiling light here. Now we're going to convert this into a prefab, and it's the easiest thing in the world. I'm going to put it into the props folder over here. I'm just going to put it just in the bare one. You can make your own folder if you want. Drag it in here, and then boom. There, you can see this changed to blue. Now I've got a prefab. Now we're going to go back up here, grab this asset, go in here. And now for that piece we just made, I'm going to go back into the props folder. And we're going to just drag this guy out, kind of put it somewhere on the ceiling. I wish it would zero it out when I put it in, but the 3, okay. And get it up on the ceiling. All right, now I got it. How do I copy paste in here? No. Okay, you can just Control D to duplicate it, and then you can drag it over. And then we can Control D again and drag this guy over. Okay. And now we're going to go back to scenes up here. Right now we're still in the prefab, so we click scenes. And look at that. It's that easy. Now, again, there's still more you could do, or you could just add that specific light prefab to all these scenes. But with not a lot of effort, you can make this look super freaking cool. I'm just going to type in Kyle, because we know that's his name. And let's see, this one here is the prefab because it's got the little blue box next to it. If you hover over it, let's say Robot Kyle prefab. Let's try this guy. Now this guy should be animated for us. So I'm going to hit play. And now, cool. He's got interesting little stance with some attitude. It might be hard to tell, but he is actually wiggling his hips and stuff like that. So there we go. Now, but we actually want this guy to do some fun stuff. So first thing that we're going to do, we need to add nav mesh to our level so that AI can actually wander around. So I'm just going to right click over here in the hierarchy and say create empty. I'm just going to call this nav mesh. And then I'm going to over here in the inspector, click add component. And we're just going to type in nav mesh. And then there's a few of these here. We're just going to select surface down here. And now I don't think we need to, we can probably just keep it as, oh, I actually no. We want to change, use geometry to physics colliders instead of render meshes. I wish it would default to that actually. Okay, after we've done that, we're going to click on bake and it should go super quick. It's already done. Now down here where it says AI navigation, we've got this little thing we can click on. And if we click the box for show nav mesh, you'll be able to see our awesome nav mesh. Now you can mess with this and the values and things like that if you want to fine tune the nav mesh. You can see it's doing some weird things, like it's actually clipping through the surface here. I don't care too much about that for right now. We got nav mesh and it looks like it's covering the entire level, and that's kind of the most important thing for what we are trying to accomplish. And the idea here, right, is that you're taking all of these different mood boards. Maybe it's all on one singular mood board. You've got character reference, environments, and map design, and lighting, and color tones, and things like that. And then you put them all together, and then out on the other end, oh, this is this particular level. This is the character we're building, or this is the gameplay feature. They should be able to see it just by looking at this list. It should or this sort of repository of references that you put together. And yeah, so Doug and myself have used this a lot more recently. I should have been using it earlier on, but I'm going to give you an example where it really helped him start to sort through, like, oh, okay, this is the mood and tone that I need to go for the music that I want to produce. So you know, in his case, he needs to see this stuff so that he can understand the audio development side of things, more so than the visual side. So then the iteration loop, and again, it's easy to overlook this, and it might even seem like, oh well, I know this, but making sure actually sticking to this is really important. You always want to play test the current build. Then you want to watch specifically how other players and even yourself, like if you're able to sort of zone out, it's easy to, like I know people that I play test with on Apex and even Halo and other games before, they would always pick the exact same legend or use the exact same weapons, and it every single time. And it's good because they're good at the game and they like the game and stuff. But it's like, well, look, like we need to look at other aspects too. And your insight, maybe you could bring that over to other, you know, weapons that you don't use all the time, or legends that you don't use, or using different features that you wouldn't normally engage with. And I have to remind myself of that a lot. Just to be clear. So including yourself with like, how are you actually engaging with the content? Are you just going through the motions when you do it? And it's tough, right? But if that's the case, like why? Like what's there that's pulling you through? And is there a reason that maybe you're not using any particular weapons or abilities or whatever it is, and you're favoring some over others every time you play through? Like it's good to dissect some of that too. Well, thanks everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow. We'll actually get into it, and it's going to be super fun. So appreciate you all, and I'll see you tomorrow.